It might seem like Next.js 14 just came out, and it feels like that to me, but already Next.js 15 is around the corner. Let's talk about what is new in Next.js 15. So number one, we've got React 19 support. So that's probably going to be one of the bigger things, that we're now going to be able to support a new version of React. Specifically, I believe that means that we will have support for the new React compiler that's coming out. The React compiler is a new compiler, obviously, from the React team that's going to help with automatically memoizing your application to help with re-rendering speed and stuff like that. So it should help with performance. Now, if your app already uses memoization very well, you might not see all of the benefits that they're talking about because you're already doing it, right? But it will be able to do this kind of automatically now for you, which is great. Something else that's also pretty cool in Next.js 15 is the hydration error improvements. So I'm going to show, I think, like a picture or something like that on the screen here. So that should help with some errors and being able to see more context inside of that error screening that you get with Next.js. So that's great. Caching. So by default in Next.js 14, caching was there by default. But after some feedback from you, me, maybe, they are turning the caching off by default in certain cases. So in the case of fetch requests, there will now no longer be default caching. Instead, you can opt in. Now, you can opt in, I believe, like project-wide, or you can also opt in on a per request basis. And then you'll be able to still benefit from caching, but it just won't be the default option anymore. The other thing is for get route handlers. So when you have your own get route, it will no longer be cached by default. You, again, can opt in. It just won't be done by default. That means that the data that you're actually fetching will now always be up to date, which I think is great. And in cases where you don't necessarily, maybe like the data is not changing that often, then you can just go and opt into that cache and you won't have a problem. Also then on the client router. So no longer will page components be cached, but along with that, layout components will still be cached, which means that they will not be refreshed. So this helps support the partial rendering feature that is there. That makes it so that can still happen. It also makes it so that back and forth browser navigation, if you hit the back button, hit the forward button, that'll still just restore itself from what it was before, as well as the fact that this then means that the actual scroll position of the page will be able to be restored as well, instead of having to refetch that and then basically just losing that scroll position. Also, loading.js is still going to be cached for 5 minutes or until the stale time.static is exceeded, basically, if you have that set to something that's lower. So something else that's going to be changing is that the partial pre-rendering, which was experimental or is experimental, in Next.js 14, this was introduced. And so now, because the page is no longer cached by default, you can then opt in each of your pages into this individually. And the recommendation now is going to be that when you have everything opted in, you should then just go and set the overall setting for the entire application to include this incremental cache for partial pre-rendering inside of the Next.js config. But until that happens, you can optionally opt in each one individually as you need to. Something else that I saw, I think I'm actually most excited for this one here. The after function, which is new and it's experimental, and essentially it allows you to schedule work for after an asynchronous request is completed. So let's say that you are going to fetch all of a user's posts, like their blog posts, right? Or tweets or something, whatever, I don't know. And after that happens, you want to, let's say, log something, or you want to tag or like collect some analytics or something like that. What you wouldn't want to do, or maybe what we do up until now, like we do this currently, is inside of that request logic, you actually might do that. But you don't really want to. It's not really that ideal because, one, in a serverless environment, it would mean that something maybe isn't getting triggered because serverless environments kind of like they kill themselves, or they totally like shut off execution after the response is sent. The other thing is that in the case of, let's say, needing to do more work like logging or analytics collection, after the request is actually completed, you wouldn't want the user to still be waiting for your additional work to happen. That's kind of just like system sort of work. So what you'd want to do ideally is be able to return that request, the data that comes along with it, and then go and actually do something kind of in the background. And that's what this after function does. It allows you to schedule work that you can have execute after whatever request is being made. So this is pretty awesome. This, I think, is probably what I'm personally most excited about. You'll want to set the experimental.after property to true to be able to use this, and then just go ahead and import the after function, and away and off you go. Additionally, the create next app also gets a little bit of a redesign. So the kind of like the skeleton project that gets created when you run that, it will have the UI from the initial, web page that gets created. It'll have that UI will be a little bit of an updated design. The other thing is that TurboPack can now be enabled for local development, which is pretty cool. And then you can also, speaking of the new design for the starter project application that you get with Next.js, you can generate an empty one, so that it makes things a little bit faster for you to kind of start building whatever it is that you're trying to build, maybe the next unicorn startup, that is. Oh, the other thing too, now my understanding is that page router is something that is recommended to not be used now because the app router has been released and is stable. However, there's a new config to have the page router match the bundling behavior of external packages. So you can go and do that, and I think you get like some performance boost and stuff like that from having that be a part of it. But if you're using the app router, which again is what I'm pretty sure all new applications are recommended that they go with, is the app router, then this is not really that applicable to you. But in any case, it is there if that is something that you need. Drop a comment down below letting me know what you're most looking forward to in Next.js 15, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care. Thanks for watching. Peace.